we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Laura, for joining us today. Welcome to APRS and Artbound Initiative's Professional Networking 101. So before we get started, APRS would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we've joined from today, recognizing the continuing connection to land, waters, and community. We pay our respects to elders, both past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So on the agenda for today, going through a little bit of introduction, and then we'll have Laura giving our presentation, followed by a little choose your own adventure mini game that we called the Legend of Networking, which we painstakingly created 11 possible endings. So looking forward to that, with a Q&A from Laura, and then we'll be doing our closing thoughts. So Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, I'd be happy to. So thanks, first of all, Jamie, and thanks, guys, for joining in. I know you probably are a bit zoomed out, so I appreciate you guys coming through. My name is Laura, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Artbound Initiative program. I'll probably tell you a little bit more also about myself during the presentation, just so that you guys can know who I am. But I'm basically running a global internship program that is focused in the creative industries. So I'm talking every day to students and every day to employers, which is why I guess I'm here today, because I know a lot about how to get opportunities and how to facilitate connections, and that we're going to really focus on that today. Hopefully really pragmatic stuff so that you guys can get out of it with some tangible action steps.
Excellent. And while you sort out your slides, I'm just going to put this up on the screen. So this is our link to our Q&A page, so that if you are thinking as this presentation goes on, oh, I want to know about that, I want to ask about that, you can submit your questions to slido.com, either use the code 33682 or scan the QR code. You'll be able to submit it, but you'll also be able to submit your questions at the end. So I shall stop sharing. And then Laura, if you want to bring up your slides, and then we can jump into it.
Good, let me do that. Give me one sec. Here it is. I'll present. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
It's loading. Give me 1 second. All right. All right, guys. So let's talk about professional networking. I know it's kind of a word that is very mystified, and I love that you guys posted on the story it's all about who you know and all those types of quotes, and it's very true. It is all about who you know. So let's kind of talk through about how to basically build up your connections from scratch. To give you a little bit more information about me, I'm originally from France, from Paris, where I studied a master's in international strategic management, which are all very fancy words to basically say business. And I started my career actually in advertising. I know that a lot of you guys are very interested in that, obviously. So I started my career at TBWA. I'm sure some of you might have heard of it. It's one of the leading agencies out there. They probably have 190 offices across the world. They're massive. And I worked there for a little bit, but really, to be honest, didn't really like my job in advertising. I just didn't feel very fulfilled in it. And the main goal for me was to actually move to New York. It wasn't to stay in Paris. I guess I watched too much American TV shows growing up, and New York was just for me the goal. There was no other place I wanted to be. So I basically decided to book a ticket and get there for 3 months and try to find a job, which was very difficult, very costly, but made it happen. Ended up meeting through a connection, a producer, a theater producer, and he was looking for an assistant and I was looking for a job. So that's how I fell into the theater industry, which is completely random because obviously I had studied business, but I always wanted to be involved in the creative fields. I never wanted to do finance or something like that. It was not my vibe. So I worked in the theater industry for 7 years on Broadway and off-Broadway shows. So it was very glamorous, lots of fun, but also very stressful. And after 7 years, I kind of decided that I was done with that and I wanted to do something else. And that's when I decided that I wanted to actually launch my own thing. And I met a great artist called Nicole Cohen, who was organizing a lot of connections between New York, LA, Berlin, different places. She was sending American students to Germany. And I was like, that's really interesting. That's a really cool model, because I struggled so much coming from Paris to go to New York back then to find an opportunity. So it would be interesting to launch a platform that would actually help students and recent grads to get access to opportunities. So that's how Artbound Initiative came about. That was in 2016. And since then, we've been doing programs in New York, in Berlin, in Hong Kong, and of course in Sydney and Melbourne as well. So we have a lot of local opportunities for you guys and international opportunities if you are interested as well of going overseas, which you're going to soon be able to do. So feel free to ask me any questions about that as well. But today, we're going to be talking about networking. And as I was telling you guys, I am in touch all the time with recruiters and with students. So I think this is something that I'm very familiar with. The concept of today is that we're going to learn how to build up your professional network from scratch, and then how to cultivate those relationships, right? And then afterwards, we'll be doing this game to kind of put it into motion and into action. So first thing I want to show you guys is a really cool survey that we actually sent out to all of our companies. We work with about 250 companies across the world. So we've asked them like, hey guys, where do you recruit people from? And obviously here you can see, shocker, that actually 60% of them almost are hiring through inner networks and referrals. So what does that mean? That means like Jamie, for example, is my nephew and he's looking for a job, and I'm in that company and I'm going to be like, hey, Jamie, and Jamie's going to be like, hey, Laura, can I have like, an internship? And I'll be like, of course you can have an internship. Here it is. Or for example, Jamie is a friend of mine and he's looking for something. And then my friend is giving me, Jamie's resume, and it's coming into my table on my desk. And then I'm going to be looking at Jamie's resume. So that's 60% of recruitment that's happening this way. And then obviously the game is not completely rigged, okay? There is still 30% of people that are getting hired through online job posting, meaning like Jamie's going to be applying to my internship position online and I don't know him. But what we're seeing here is, instead of you guys focusing on like sending out those hundreds of applications random to like a bunch of companies, maybe you should be really focusing your time on actually building those connections, because that's what's going to get you the jobs, right? So what do we see here that I think is very simple to me is that obviously COVID has really impacted, recruitment lately. It's been even harder. I know for you guys, it's been very difficult because it has been even difficult for us to find internships in Melbourne and Sydney due to all the uncertainty of the situation. The creative industries as well, advertising, PR, marketing, all those fields are so competitive, and they're very much about who you know. So the concept here is, let's get into that 60% data. Let's build strategic connections, and most importantly, let's create mentor-mentee relationships, which is really what's going to save you in the end of the day. So I'll tell you guys about basically where do we find those people, right? You don't have to have a cool aunt like me to find a job, right? Jamie, I'm joking. I'm too young to be your aunt, FYI. So let's talk about where to find those connections. So obviously, the first one is your school. I know you're going to think about like, okay, yeah, it's obvious, but actually, you guys are probably not tapping into your school enough. I'm sure that, as anything that you're doing in life, you have to pay for it, right? So there's a tuition to be attending university and to be getting an education. Get your money back. The same way that I'm saying the exact same thing for people that join our program and that pay our tuition, I always tell them, recoup every dollar that you put into this program. So how can you do this? I think that your school has an immense network that you can tap in. The professors and the alumni are going to be key people for you to look into. So what you should be doing right now, first action step that I'll talk about in this workshop, if you want to take notes, is go ahead and do some stalking work of your professors. Like, start looking into who your professors are. Jamie, on your school's website, there's probably somewhere with the professors' bios, right?
Yeah.
So look into that and start seeing whoever taught you, whether it was year 1, year 2, year 3, whoever you basically were in class with, who are those people? Because if you're a professor at a university level, either you have extensive experience in the industry or you have an incredible expertise. So in any case, it's good for you guys. You might actually find out that some of your professors worked or are currently working in like agencies or companies that you're dreaming to work with. So start stalking them, just kind of like reading through who they are, and maybe select 5 of them or like 6 of them if you want, that you feel like would be potential good people to connect with. Okay, so that's step number 1. Now for the alumni, step number 2, do the same thing. So Jamie, one question, do you know if UNSW has some form of like an alumni department relations or something like that?
I believe so. They do have an alumni thing. I'm not quite there yet, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but it exists.
It exists. So you see, for example, perfect example that you guys are not taking advantage enough of your school, because there are people that actually are staff working for those opportunities. So take a look if UNSW has anything like that. I would recommend first. And if they do, go and show up to the office and be like, hey, I want to be connecting with people in the PR and advertising industry. Can you help me do that? Like, how can you support me? If that doesn't work out and they tell you like, oh, sorry, we can't do anything for you, which might be the case, you can do it by yourself. You can go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a great filtering system where basically you can go ahead and filter by your school. You can even filter by the graduation year if you want to be targeting like people that are like 10, 15 years of experience and your industry. So I'd put UNSW, advertising, graduated in like 26, 2006, sorry, so that you have somebody that's like a little bit older, and start looking at who's who, and maybe select, same thing, 5 or 10 alumni that you want to be contacting. So once you have that, you have your list of professors and your list of alumni that you've created, I would recommend to email them basically, and to say something along the lines of, let's say Jamie is my professor, right? He taught me like, I don't know, the latest trends in PR for the creative industries. Let's just say that was the title of the course that he was teaching. So I would contact Jamie and I would be like, hey Jamie, my name is Laura and I was actually one of your students last year. Your class really opened up so many perspectives for me in terms of where I wanted to go towards the PR field. I was actually just reading a lot about who you are online and kind of seeing your trajectory. And I was wondering if you had 20 minutes for a meeting or a Zoom call, as I'd love to hear more about how you got to where you are. You see why I'm doing this and why I'm taking the time to formulate this email is I'm utilizing 2 techniques here. The first one is that I'm actually putting the meeting with Jamie about him, okay? So when you're networking with someone, you never want to say like, hey, Jamie, can we talk about me? Do you have advice for me, etc.? People don't have time to do that. However, people love talking about themselves. They do, including all of us. So if you put the meeting about the other, they will be more inclined to meet with you. If you say like, I want to hear more about how you got to where you are, or I want to hear more about your trajectory or your input about where the industry is going, people will meet with you. The second thing is I'm adding a time frame here. I said, do you have 20 minutes for a meeting or a Zoom call? The reason why I'm saying that is I think probably a lot of professionals, they don't want to meet with you because they're like, look, I don't know who this kid is. I don't have an hour. I'm busy, right? But if you give them 20 minutes, everybody's got 20 minutes, even if you're very busy, like people usually have 20 minutes in their schedule. So I would recommend to do that with professors and to do the same thing with alumni. Make sure that you personalize this very well, okay? So every time I want you to add like a little pitch about why you're connecting with them. If it's an alumni, like I've noticed that we went through the same degree and I was just looking at like all your career steps and, you've worked at companies that are key players for me and, you can kind of have a little bit of short, but an introduction as why you contact them. So start with that and tell me how it goes. I think that honestly, if you start doing this, you might get a few meetings and you might start to like identify some of those mentors. So school is key for sure. Tap into it and do it now, because otherwise you might be losing the momentum. So, sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
While you're talking, I did find out some of those resources. I just put in the chat. So there's Research UNSW, which is all the researchers at UNSW. Then for alumni, there is a dedicated UNSW link for mentoring, which has got Alumni Connect, Meet a Mate, Career Discovery, and all those other events, as well as any of your lecturers or tutors. Most likely you can type up their name just in Google, type in UNSW, and you'll have their staff page. I put in our good friend Peter Roberts as an example for that.
Amazing. You're like my research guru. So perfect. Because I thought you're gonna be like, bring us example. I love that. So that's number one. Number two is your own circle. I think that a lot of people forget to tap into their own networks. I'm not making any assumptions about who you are and where you come from. You might be the first person in your family that's studying. You might have family that has zero connections in the field, but friends and fam, how I call it, friends and fam is always a great place to look into, because those are people that love you and that actually wants, good things for you. So you can ask also friends at school that are maybe studying other stuff that that are maybe not in advertising or PR, because those people are probably already trying to make connections for themselves. I would recommend to start asking for help and connections to your friends and family, but don't tell them that you're looking for a job and that you need their help, because they're not going to do that. That's going to put them in a very awkward position. They're going to be like, I don't want to introduce you to somebody, I'm not sure. So choose another angle. The way I would go about it, if Jamie was indeed my nephew, Jamie, you're going to be all my examples today, just so you know, like it's you. So let's say Jamie is indeed, my nephew. He would come to, the best way for him to come to me, instead of telling me like, hey, Laura, I'm looking for a job in PR, like, do you know anybody? Instead, it's best for him to tell me like, hey, Laura, I'm really trying to make it into the PR industry. And at this point, I'm trying to set up, talks with as many professionals as possible to get a better insider perspective of what the field is and where the trends are. Do you know anybody in the field by any chance that I could speak with? That's a much better angle. So utilize that angle. Never say that you're looking for a job or anything, but utilize the fact that you're trying to gain as many connections as possible to have an insider perspective of the field, so that you can refine where you want to be going. Try this. List out maybe second action step. We had the number one, which was alumni professor connections, right? Second action step, list out maybe a few people in your own circle, like literally put together, like think about it, have a blank page and think about who you might be able to ask, who might know. And sometimes you'd be surprised, people, I remember when I moved to New York, my mother introduced me to a lawyer, and I was so pissed about it because I didn't want to be a lawyer. And I was like, why are you, the family connections are so annoying. I was like, Mom, why are you doing this? And actually I met the lawyer in New York, and he's the one who introduced me to the theater producer. And I found my job that way. So that's just to kind of tell you, like, I did not, sometimes even people that are outside of your field, meet with them, because you never know where it leads. So utilize that as well as much as you can. Another place to look into is previous and current employers. That's going to be key. I don't know if you guys have ever done internships before or have worked even in hospitality or retail or other stuff, but establish a good relationship with those people. And if you did an internship 2 years ago and you're not still in touch with the supervisors, then think again. You need to make sure that you maintain those relationships, because even if those people don't have jobs for you right now, first of all, they know a lot of people in the industry because it's all interconnected, and they might be willing to help you. So if you are having internships, if you are having jobs, make sure that you network with the bosses, right, vertically, but also don't forget to network with the other interns and the other juniors. You don't know who they are. Most likely they are the nephew of the boss, or I'm joking, but I'm half joking. Or there might be actually people that are going to be rock stars in 5 years, they might be. And then it's too late in 5 years to be like, hey, Jamie, do you remember 5 years ago we were interning together, when Jamie's a big shot in one of the massive advertising agencies. So it's best to start now. So circle, look into it, and see how you can also tap into it in a strategic way. Again, never ask directly about positions, ask more about connections in the field for insider perspectives. The last one is events and networks. Okay, I know that we're during COVID and that was a little bit complicated to do, but the creative industries are very much about showing face. It actually is. So I would recommend for you guys to take a look at what is the calendar of events in your industry. You guys might be wanting to do different types of stuff. Maybe some of you guys want to be in fashion. Maybe some of you guys want to be in entertainment. Maybe some of you guys want to be in advertising. Maybe some of you guys want to be in pure corporate PR type of stuff. Take a look at what your industry is that you like, and start seeing what are the events. There's always events no matter which industry you're in. Fashion would be fashion weeks. art would be art fairs, advertising would be all the big ad conferences and design conferences. And I would recommend to attend those events, not to show up awkward in a suit with like a name tag by yourself and trying to give your business cards to people, because that's horrible. Don't do that. But just to kind of like start being in the field a little bit and gaining a better industry knowledge. I think the problem that a lot of people have to network is the imposter syndrome. They're like, damn, if I'm going to meet with that person and they're like 15 years of experience, what am I going to say, right? That's tough. It's a tough one. Number one, you shouldn't say too much. You should actually listen and you should ask questions. But at least if you're going to those types of events and you're starting to know more about your industry, you have stuff to talk about. I can be like, Jamie, did you see the latest, conference about, in advertising? Like, did you see TBWA, what they did, like with the campaign for Nike? That was so crazy. You can start having a little bit of a substance, in what you're saying. The other thing that I would recommend is also to join collectives, associations, or membership-based organizations. Obviously, Artbound, for example, is one of them, right? We have like our program, like it's an investment, yes, but if you do join our program, you're getting access directly to like a bunch of other people that are in advertising, that are in PR, people in your field. There's also a lot of national associations that you might want to check out. There's probably like some other memberships. Maybe you have to invest in a membership fee, but honestly, it's so worth it because you're gaining access to a bunch of people in your field. And that might save you a few years actually to be able to network, because once you're in that membership or that association or that collective or that program, you've got the connect, you've got like the angle, you can actually connect with people because you are part of that. You're also a member. And I think that makes a big, I think a big jump. So potentially, I don't have a lot of examples for you guys on that, but for example, in advertising in New York, there's this amazing club called the One Club for Creativity. And you have to pay to be a member, but they have like student discounts. And if you join that, like you see all the people, there's a lot of mentors, like you can ask things, you can ask for connections. I highly recommend to look at it as an investment. Maybe skip 3 or 5 dinners outside instead and put that money into it, because it will be a much better spend. So that's kind of where to find the connections. Okay, like that was kind of the first part of the workshop. So I give you a few tools, right? So action 1, take a look at the school. Action 2, start looking into your own circle. Action 3, start doing some research about where you should be showing up and what are the memberships, associations that exist out there. Now, all of that I'm giving you is to kind of make a first introduction, right? But I think what's difficult in networking is actually to build up something, build up a relationship, because it's easy to send out an email to meet somebody once. How do you actually cultivate people? So I'll give you 2 last slides for this workshop and then I'll stop talking, because I'm sure you guys will be saturating soon. And afterwards we'll start like asking your questions away and also doing that game, which I'm actually really excited about because I don't know what you guys prepared for me. I'm super pumped. So how do you build up connections? I'm going to give you some techniques here to cultivate. Cultivating is a keyword here that you guys should remember. If I'm meeting somebody, then I need to be cultivating them. So let's take an example. Jamie, again, it's on you. So let's say Jamie is my professor. I sent him an email and I was like, Jamie, I want to hear more about you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he said yes. I meet Jamie and Jamie tells me like, okay, so I think that if you want to make it in PR, you should definitely actually connect with one of my previous students who's now working. He's now the head of his own PR firm, and he might actually have like some internships available, and you should definitely check him out. Perfect. What do I do after that? Number 1, I need to thank Jamie for his time. That is number 1. So Jamie, thank you so much for your time. It was incredible for me to hear your perspective, about this field. And I feel like I have such a better idea now of where to go. And then great moment to follow up on the ask. He said something to me. He said that I should be connecting with an alumni, right? By the way, thank you very much for offering an introduction to that, former student of yours who actually owns his PR firm. Like, how would you suggest we go about this? Would you want me to just connect with him at your suggestion, or would you think it's a better way to go through an introduction email from you? Let me know, and thanks again. Okay, so that's my email to Jamie. Now, let's say that Jamie says, cool, I'm introducing you to that guy. Okay, so actually to that woman, because I'm seeing Serena's name here. So let's say I'm meeting Serena, who's like basically the head of a PR firm at the recommendation of Jamie, right? So I meet Serena, she tells me like, look, definitely apply for the internship. I'll review your application, blah, blah. Okay. I finished this meeting. What should I do now? Obviously, I need to thank Serena again. Serena, thank you very much. It was, really great to meet you and to kind of hear more about like your own journey and how you build up this PR firm. I will definitely be applying for the internship. Let me prepare all of that and I'll get back to you. But I don't stop here. If I stop here, I missed the point. Now I need to go back to Jamie and tell to Jamie, thank you so much. I just met with Serena. We had an incredible meeting. We talked about this and that, and she actually recommended that I apply to the internship. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to let you know how it goes. You see, from zero connection that I had with Jamie now, somehow, Jamie, you feel a bit more invested in me, right? Because I'm like keeping you posted in what I'm doing. So this is how you start cultivating people. First of all, you never forget to thank them. And I'm sure some of you guys must be like, oh my God, I probably forgot to thank somebody at one point. So it's all good. But now you know, don't forget. And if somebody's introducing you, keep them posted on how the connection happened. Because if you don't do that, I cannot come back to Jamie afterwards and be like, hey, Jamie, is there another connection that I could look into? It's going to be like, I introduced you to Serena. I have no idea what happened with that. Like, of course not. He's not going to do it. So you need to be following up and to thanking people. Another good thing to do is keep in touch with people, right? So let's say I applied for Serena's job. It didn't work out, but I ended up finding another company that, got an internship. What do I need to do first? Jamie, amazing news. I actually got an internship with that PR firm. I'm so excited. I feel like our conversation really helped me refine my pitch towards them. You've been really instrumental in terms of like helping me in that process. I would love to tell you how things are. Like, can we grab coffee in a couple of months once I'm a little bit more into it so that I can debrief of what's going on? For example, Serena, I just wanted to let you know that I've actually found an internship with another firm. Thank you again so much for reviewing my application. I'm hoping, I know that I was a little bit too junior perhaps for the position, but I'm hoping that with this internship now, I can build up a little bit more leverage and, get a little bit more skills, and hopefully I can apply again. I would love to stay in touch and to tell you how it went. This is how you keep in touch with people. You actually share with them good news, like those types of stuff. Obviously, don't share personal news. Like, don't tell them like I'm engaged or stuff like that. You're not there yet, but be in touch with good stuff. If you have like, for example, a project that's coming up that you're really proud of, you can share with them. It can be for major holidays. Jamie, Merry Christmas. Hope all is well. If Jamie told me that he has like a really big project that's coming up, I note it down. And then right before the project, good luck for it. I'm super excited. I'll definitely be there. Try to figure out ways to stay in touch every 3 to 6 months approximately. And then offer your help as well. Okay. I think something that you need to demystify in your head right now is that right now you're young, right? You're beginning your career. So you're thinking like, damn, if I'm going to contact this person, I'm going to be asking them favors. I feel bad. Don't. You're also going to be a strategic connection for people. You know that, like a lot of the people that are in this field, specifically in the creative fields, the senior ones, they need the young people. They need the youth to stay relevant. Otherwise, like they cannot stay up to the trends. They cannot understand what's going on and where things are going. So you are equally strategic to them than they are to you. Don't be cocky about it. Obviously, I'm not telling you that for this, but Jamie knows that if he's meeting me, he knows that in a few years, I'm going to be of interest to him as well. So be strategic for your mentors and offer your help at one point. Jamie, by the way, you've been so helpful throughout this entire process. Like if there's anything that I can do on my end to support you at any point, like please let me know, right? Something like that eventually. Showcase that you can help. So the last slide before I start overwhelming you guys is basically, you understand where my point is going. Networking with the right people is going to really accelerate your career growth. It's going to get you access to opportunities that maybe you would have taken 5 years to get. So keep track. The other action step that I want to give you is start a Google Doc today, a Google Sheet, for example, something that you can be like accessing from your phone, from anywhere, and start keeping track. All right. So in my Google Sheet, I would have Jamie, then I would have Serena. Okay, I have 2 people now. It's a bit lame, but it's gonna go a little bit more. So I'm noting down who Jamie is, who Serena is, when is the last time I met them. Do I have any details about them? Like I know that Jamie has a partner that's named X, or so that I can kind of like be able to look like I'm actually following. Start doing this. I know it sounds ridiculous right now because you might have 3 or 4 connections, but believe me, it's exponential, those types of stuff. So if you don't keep track now, it's going to be difficult. I have an entire software that's like everything. Obviously, it's my job. I'm in recruitment, and that's, you know, the entire model of my program is that I need to have connections in the field. But I have an entire software that like tells me like, boom, follow up with that person, do this, do that. It's all automated. So you don't need to go to that level, not yet, but at least have a Google Sheet and then have an alarm every 3 months to take a look at it and check where you are. So my conclusion to this workshop is that mentors and connections will impact your life. Okay, first of all, they're going to give you professional input that might save you many years. Maybe Jamie is going to tell me like, Laura, honestly, what you're telling me and your interest, are you sure you want to be doing PR? Are you sure you don't want to be doing communication actually? Because it feels to me like it's a little bit more in terms of what you're seeking. People that have the experience, they're going to tell you based on what you want to be doing, if there might be some ideas in other areas that you can be looking into. So take the professional input. Second of all, people, if they like you and they start seeing you as a mentee, as their protege, they're going to open all doors for you. Like senior people, they will open everything because it doesn't matter for them. It's just an introduction. You know what I mean? If I'm going to do an email to anyone, it's nothing for me. I can do an email to like so many of my contacts. If I like Jamie and he's my mentee, then obviously I'm going to help him and I'm going to put him in touch with all the people that I know because I want him to succeed. So those people are going to be impacting your life tremendously. That lawyer that I told you in the beginning, I don't know if you guys remember the guy that my mother introduced me to that I did not want to see, that lawyer Marty, he became my mentor actually. And through Marty, for 7 years, I found all my jobs. All my jobs were through one guy. I never had to show a resume ever. I started my resume only. I don't even have a resume anymore. That's to tell you. And I will tell you, don't have a resume, please, because that's very important. But I'm just telling you that I never ever had to show a resume anymore because all the jobs that I got were through Laura, meet with that person, lunch meeting, I get the job, you know, and I talk about who I am. So that's how it's going to work out. And that's how it's going to go. So guys, I hope this was helpful and not too much information. Now let's put this in practice. Please ask me your questions. We're 15 people here. I'm expecting you guys to ask questions as well, because you should take advantage of the fact that I'm here and that I can, like, you know, provide examples, and there's nothing too personal. So if you think it's too personal, it's probably helping a lot of other people. So Jamie, back to you.
Great. Yeah, so if you'd like to send through some questions just before, we will do the Q&A, but we're going to try out something a little bit new, something that we haven't done before. Let me try and, not going to do that. That's fine. Which is called The Legend of Networking. Basically, what we're going to do here is it's a choose your own adventure, choose your own path. I'm going to be putting up a Zoom poll so that everyone can vote on which path we should go down. And then Laura, if you would be so great to give us a bit of commentary, or maybe you're thinking of like which one you would pick, which one maybe shouldn't go down. There are 11 possible endings to this. So let's just jump into it, I guess. Let's come over here onto this one. There we are. Right. So basically it kind of works as almost like a role-playing sort of thing. So we're gonna begin our networking adventure. So you arrive at the 2022 APRS Careers Panel. What will you do? Will you sit near the front or sit near the back? Seems fairly meaningless, but so the poll should show up on your screen now. And if we get some votes in, we'll figure out where we go. Laura, what do you reckon? Sit in the front or the back?
So should I answer that? Well, I would definitely sit in the front, for sure. In the front.
And so far, we have 100% saying sit near the front. 7 out of 7 thus far. So let's take it down that path. And result, go again. Oh, actually, hang on. So the panel begins. How will you take your notes? Pen and paper or on your laptop?
I'm waiting for people to answer before I say it.
Sure. This one's got a bit more of a split. So, oh, it's 50-50 at the moment. Currently, we've got 56% of people going for the pen and paper and Oh, 60 for the pen and paper, 40 for the laptop. Laura, are you a pen and paper or are you digital?
I would probably I'm a digital person, but I would probably do a pen and paper because it's a little bit, first of all, I would go with a short, a small notepad so that I can just like flip it and then, right away being able to interact, because with a computer or a laptop, it's going to be a bit awkward when you want to be like starting to talk to people and everything. So I would definitely go pen and paper, just more flexible.
There we go. All right. And the poll agrees with you, 60% to 40%. We're going with pen and paper. So the phone starts to ring. Should you answer it? Oh, actually, yeah. So of course, it could be important. We should answer the phone. Or no way, I can call them back later.
It's really fun. Sorry, I'm looking at the choices before I answer. Well, can I say it?
Yeah, I think so. We've got some answers coming through, so.
I'm definitely calling them back later. I mean, unless it's like my family is telling me, surgeon, somebody's in the hospital. I'm like calling back later for sure. I want to stay focused, and I definitely don't want to show any like lack of professionalism.
Right. So we've got 25% of people who disagree, but the vast majority of people are going to call them back. So let's end that one. Let's hop over to our 3. So we've got 3 passed now. So the networking with the panelists has begun. How do you approach the panelists? So first of all, should you approach with a handshake and ask Laura about her experience in Paris? The second, approach them with a friend and let your friend take the lead. Or don't approach yet, wait around a little bit and wait for the crowd to die down.
Tough one.
Path 1. Is there, what deters you from the other paths, I guess?
So I would definitely approach with a handshake. I would actually do 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
I would approach them with a handshake, and I don't know if I would ask them about their experience right away, because like, are they about to start? Sorry, give me more context here. I need to understand.
Sure.
So they're about to start their panel. They're about to start their talk.
No, so it's finished. So their talk is finished, and
Okay.
we've gone into a networking session, which is kind of like everyone's chatting, like a function room.
Perfect. So I would approach them and ask about their experience in Paris. And then I would also wait around a little bit for the crowd to die down and approach them potentially again. If I really wanted to create a connection, I would be like, thanks, by the way, for chatting with me earlier. Just wanted to see if there might be any possibilities for us to continue the conversation. So I would actually do path 1 and path 3.
Oh, righto. Well, 70% has chosen path 1. So let's go down this route. After you have your nice chats, you want to get in contact with them later. What contact details should you get from them? First, ask them to add you on Facebook. Second, ask to add them on LinkedIn. And third, ask them for their phone number. So let's redo the poll here, relaunch that, and take your picks. So ask them to add you on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or for their phone number. Thoughts?
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It's a LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place to look to do that for. Phone number is way too personal.
And it looks like 90% of people agree with you. So we shall head down our LinkedIn route and the poll. So after the event, you're sitting on the train, you're heading back home, you start reflecting on the panel. Should you send them a message about how nice it was to meet them? Second, don't send a message yet because you might come off as a bit clingy. Or third, send them a follow-up message and ask them if they have any internships available. Relaunch that poll. Some interesting choices here.
Nice. So I would choose the first one as well. So I'll send them a message about how nice it was to meet them, but I wouldn't stop there. I wouldn't ask if they have any internship position available because it's too early, but I would actually ask them what I told you guys about, which is I've been actually on the train reading even more about who you are. And I'd love to kind of, if you have the time to get on a short call, because I'd like to hear more about your trajectory. And potentially you might have also some input in terms of where the latest trends of the industries are going and where you focus on as a recent graduate or as a student. So I would not just say, it's nice to meet you and leave it there. I would follow up with an ask, but certainly not about internships quite yet, too early.
Too early. All right, so let's go down path number one. That leads us to ending number two. It's a good ending. You use your skills that you learned to apply for a summer vacation role. And thanks to your attentive listening during the panel, you learned what the recruiters are looking for. Oh, wait, hang on. You just got an email. Oh my God, it's your application was successful. Congrats. Very well done. So we reached a good ending. So I might take a slight read of the room here. Do we want to go back and try and get the bad ending? As you can see down the bottom here, there is 471 slides in this total.
I love it. It's so fun. Yeah, let's do the bad ending.
So let's go. So this time we're going to aim to try and get the worst ending possible. Get everything wrong. So again, we arrive at the 2022 APRS Careers Panel. What will you do? Sitting in the front, sitting in the back?
Sit near the back.
Sitting in the back. I think everyone's pretty in agreement on that one. So we'll go to the back. The panel begins. How should you take your notes? Are we actually, I'm going to let the poll run its course on this one because it was quite close last time. So pen and paper or on a laptop.
Maybe well, we're choosing worst case scenarios, right? Okay.
Maybe people will double down with it. No, we're going with the laptop. Sure, let's go down here. All right, so now your phone starts ringing. Do you answer it? Of course, it could be important or no way, I can call them back. So interesting. Oh no, okay. So we got 100% on, of course, it could be important. So let's head down this path.
I'm on the back on my laptop, on my phone. It's perfect.
As a curious thing to do, you leave the room to answer the call. It's your mom. She's called to ask you to pick up some baking powder on the way home from uni. You roll your eyes and agree to get back to the panel. Oh no, Laura, your favorite panelist, has started speaking and you missed her talk. You better start catching up. Going next. So now the networking with the panelists has begun. How do you approach them? So let's go back to our free path choice. So don't approach yet. Wait a little bit for the crowd to die down, or approach them with a friend, or approach them with a handshake. Which one of, I guess, the bad options here do we want to go down?
Well, I guess approach them with a friend who was listening and let them take the lead.
There we go. So we've got 80% going down this middle path. So let's go through here. After you have your nice chats, you want to get in contact with them. What details? So Facebook, phone number, or LinkedIn. What do we reckon is going to be the worst for us here? Facebook, phone number, LinkedIn.
Definitely Facebook for me.
We got 50-50 on phone number, Facebook.
I think phone number is better than Facebook, guys. Facebook is like, hey, can I see your family photos and like your dog photos and stuff, you know, when they're like not close at all. Phone number, you can still, you know.
At least phone number, you're a bit different. It's like, you're not going to go in the same inbox as everyone, but.
Yeah.
So we've got 60-40 for Facebook. So we'll head down this path here. And then of course, after the event, you head over to Coles to get your mum's baking soda and you start reflecting on the panel. Should you send them the follow-up message and ask them about the internship, send a message about how nice it was to meet them, or don't send a message yet, you could be a little bit clingy.
I'm waiting to see that.
Would your take on the clingy angle be like if you had just left, or like you're still, maybe what's the line of like how long should you wait until you should send a message?
Well, first of all, you're not dating, so you should be sending a message, like keep the momentum, you know, there's not a question like, let me look uninterested. You don't need to do that. So I would say you send them, you can certainly send, I would say always keep the momentum. Same thing for a thank you note. I would send it right away afterwards. So I think the most cringy option would be to send a follow-up email and being like, oh, thank you so much. By the way, do you have any internships available? That would be the worst for me.
Sure. And we've got 71% people who agree with you. So we're going to go down that top path. Ending number 4, the Facebook ending. No thanks to your mother's baking soda. You didn't learn much useful from the panel. But worse, Laura never ends up responding to your Facebook Messenger DM. It must have gone to spam.
Or she ghosted you, either or.
Or she ghosted you. Fantastic. So that is 2 of our many possible endings. I can send in the link for this one if you'd like to have a look through and try and get all the endings. But otherwise, let me back out of here and we'll go back and we'll start doing our Q&A. So if you'd like to scan the QR code on the screen or go to slido.com and enter the code 336822 and we'll get going on those. Let me get at my Q&As. So while we wait for our attendees, we do have some pre-made questions that we can just go through as the rest of them come through. So let's choose, this is a fun one. What are some good icebreaker questions for networking events?
That's a great question. I mean, it's honestly, you know, it's very difficult for me to kind of answer the questions about networking events because I also feel like networking events are a little bit cringy too in some ways. Like it's a little bit difficult to kind of like, and I'm an extrovert, but to break into like, you know, you don't know anybody and being like, so what do you think about this event? I would like, you know, if I were on a networking event, I would kind of figure out a way to, you know, first of all, come with somebody so that it's not like I'm not alone in this concept. And I think maybe what I could ask about, like, you know, I could probably ask like if they've been to the previous event that you know was organized. Like I could be talking, you know, I would probably ask questions about the exact context that we're in. Maybe not about like, so what's your job? You know, what are you doing? I think that's a little bit cringy. So it would be more, is that the first time you're going to this event or did you go to the last edition? It was like, there were so many less people. It's really successful this time. So I'd probably like break into a question of something that's happening right now to kind of like start some small talk before going into the real deep conversations.
For sure. Got another one here, which is, what are some lessons that you've learned from your mentors and why would you recommend, or we've gone through why you would recommend, but would you mind sharing with us some of the lessons that maybe people share with you previously?
I think that the lessons that, you know, my mentors, you know, shared with me was actually the power of like really staying in close communication and understanding not to be in touch with people when you only need favors from them, you know, not to be there only when you're requiring favors. And that's why I've been like insisting with you guys about the cultivation, the follow through, is because that is really how you build up a connection. If I'm coming back to somebody every time, can I have your advice? Can I have a connection? Can I have this? And I don't show up in the meantime, I don't keep them in the loop, I don't do things, then people are going to be tired of that. You know, when I have some of my participants, of course, my participants, they can ask any favors, obviously, from me because, you know, we work together on that. But if I have like alumni that always show up with me and, you know, that have done my program 3 years ago and that only contact me when they need me for something, as opposed to cultivating me, it makes a difference. You know, the people that actually were managing to like keep me posted when they had jobs and stuff like that, I feel invested in them. You know, I want to help them. So that would probably be the biggest lesson that I've learned from my mentors, is like pull through even when you're not asking for something, because that's how you build up a relationship.
For sure. You don't want to be that person when you see the notification and you go, oh, this again.
Exactly.
Keep on your toes. Mix it up a little bit. Got one here that says, can you name a few of the media agencies that Artbound work with?
Yes, of course. So, for example, in Australia, so we work with like most of the agencies that we work with are either advertising, branding, PR, or comm. So, for example, for communication, we work with Soda Communications, which is a great agency. For some marketing firms, we work with Taurus Marketing. In terms of advertising agencies, we work with, for example, Milkman Studio in Melbourne, which is like a super cool agency, with 72 and Sunny here in Sydney. For example, if we're looking outside of Australia, we actually work with TBWA, for example, in Hong Kong. In New York, we work with agencies like Reflex Group, which are the ones who are doing all the communication for like MAC Cosmetics and Yves Saint Laurent, YSL, and some of them for Fenty Beauty. So a lot of like, we're actually very strong in advertising, PR, comm. That's really something that we do well and that we love. And I'm happy also to send you, maybe I'll send you guys afterwards. We just did a really cool event yesterday with Spring Studios, which is the home of New York Fashion Week in New York. We couldn't invite you all because it was 3 a.m. for you, but I can send you guys a recording because I'm talking about, and I'll send you also a recording afterwards with an agency that we did here called Milkman in Melbourne, because I talk a lot about the types of agencies that we work with as well in there.
That would be great. Yeah, we really love to share that with our members. So.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that right when you in the meantime that you find the next question.
Great. Let's have a look. I'm not sure how particularly well versed you're going to be on the Sydney side of things, but particularly for the creative industries, do you know any examples of networking events in Sydney and what we should be looking out for or actively attending?
You know, in Sydney, I'm not as familiar as I would be, for example, in New York in terms of networking opportunities. I would say like make sure probably like a good place to look at, and that can be also, by the way, great questions for your professors, right? Like really talking to them and being like, hey, by the way, you know, do you know where I should be looking into, like what type of events I should be actually going to. So I think that it could be a really great question for potential mentors. I would say, like, to be honest, you're noticing that on my entire networking presentation, I didn't really tell you to go like to go to networking events to network. I don't know if you've noticed that. I actually am not a massive believer of being able to create a connection in a random event. I think that the best way to create connections is through links, through things that have already an angle. That's why you'll notice that I didn't tell you like contact a random person on LinkedIn and ask them to be their friends. I always tell you, if you contact people, it needs to be a professor, it needs to be an alumni, it needs to be somebody who is part of your membership, right, association, so that there is an angle. It needs to be a friend of friend, it needs to be a friend of family. So in networking, in my experience, what has worked the most is when you find a link. That's when people are going to answer you. Otherwise, it's like throwing a bottle, you know, in the sea and waiting for somebody to answer the message. You know, it's that's why I get sometimes so many connections on LinkedIn of people I've never met, that never even attended an event that I did. If they attended an event, like for example, after this webinar, if you guys want to add me on LinkedIn, of course I'm going to answer you specifically because I know you attended. But if you're going to add me randomly just because you want to connect with me and I have zero idea of who you are and you're not including a note, then I'm probably not going to accept you, you know. So I think find, of course, networking opportunities and events, but think about more, instead of networking events, find more industry events. I think that's going to be more useful to you, just so that you can gain the knowledge and start seeing who the key players are. You would be probably better off than going to like speed dating, networking cocktails and stuff like that. It doesn't work too much, in my opinion. I've done some of those, but I've never found really great connections through them.
Yeah, I think definitely ask mentors or professors. That's probably the best one. I know personally that there is, we've kind of just passed the award season, but there are typically a lot of these award ceremonies that do happen. Having a look at who the winners are, those ones I find very interesting, and seeing some repeat offenders, and you go, oh, the monkeys, I've seen those guys pop out about 3 times and know what's going on with that. We've got a question here, which is a bit more into your personal side rather than the networking, but can you share with us your experience studying and working abroad? For example, working in Paris or working for Broadway?
Yeah, of course. Let me just, before I do that, I'm going to just share with you guys also a webinar that we did not too long ago on LinkedIn, actually, because I would love for you to watch it. It's with a recruiter in Australia, and it's for our Australia crew. So take a look at it, because honestly, that would be a good place to start. So in terms of my experiences, working in Paris was amazing. Working for TBWA was incredible. It's like, you know, I don't know if any of you guys have ever worked in advertising agencies, but working for ad agencies is fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of parties. It's a lot of perks. So that was really, really cool. The reason why I didn't like my job too much is because, first of all, you know, in advertising, usually you're attached to specific clients, and we call it accounts. So specific brands that you're working with. So I was working for a big retailer, like a massive supermarket in France. I didn't really enjoy the work that I was doing. My role was mainly to liaise between clients and creatives. So clients would come to us and be like, hey, we've got $2 million for this campaign. Like, what are you going to do with it? We would, you know, this is the audience, the target, the message. And then we would kind of like strategize that, pass it on to creatives that would come up with campaigns. And then we do a lot of back and forth. So my job was really to be that middle person in between. So that was really cool for a while, but then afterwards I kind of got bored of it. My experience in New York was incredible. I mean, New York City, if you guys can experience it one day in your life, like you absolutely should go. It's the most amazing place. The Broadway industry is very cutthroat. It's a massive industry. Specifically in New York, it's a lot of money. My role in my job was actually to raise money. So for example, for a Broadway musical, you're looking at about $12 million in budget to put something together. So my role was actually to go and pitch people and get them to invest $1 million or $500,000. And so it was a very interesting job, but it was a very draining job as well, because it's not easy to raise money. And yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, but then it was very glamorous, of course, because when you work in the theater industry, you're going to see all the openings. Like I used to go to see like 2 shows a week, and like you're involved with amazing artists and writers and actors and directors. So it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend the theater industry. I don't know how, you know, I think that in Australia, it's a little bit less commercial than it is in the US, of course. But still, I know that there's a lot of big shows that are coming to Sydney and Melbourne too.
Certainly. As a bit of a personal follow-up for that one, what's your favorite musical?
Well, I'm so biased, but my favorite musical was the one that I actually worked on and produced, called The Band's Visit, which actually won all the Tony Awards in like 2015, I think. I might say a mistake, but we won all the Tonys. And that was like, you know, the best moment, you know, for me as well, to kind of see that we got there. The second one would be Hamilton. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Yes, so Hamilton.
It's a little niche one, you know, not many people heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I saw Hamilton when it was off Broadway, which is very rare, because before you go to Broadway, you have an off Broadway run. So I saw it in a small theater originally with the original cast. So I was there. I saw it because I was working in the industry back then.
That's it. I think we'll go for one final question here, which is, can you tell us a bit more about Artbound's design/advertising internships and how they kind of run?
Yeah, of course, of course. So basically for ABI, so for the program, if you guys want to apply, by the way, for local internships, we're still taking applications for the summer, probably like starting in January, I would say. So highly recommend, if you want to do that, to contact us. You can email us at info@Artbound Initiative. I'm just going to type it in here, and actually let us know that, you know, you guys are from the club, because we actually work, you know, closely. So at least our advisors can get quickly on a call with you and talk about this. Make sure that if you want to be applying, apply soon, in the next week or two. And you need to apply with a resume. If you're a designer, for example, we will need to see your portfolio, and then you can also add a couple of recommendation letters if you have them. And then we'll be doing an interview and kind of reviewing your application to let you know if you can get in. In terms of the design and advertising internships that we offer, there's a lot of them. It depends what you want to be doing. You can be, for example, doing a graphic design internship within an agency, or maybe within a magazine or a fashion brand that have like an in-house design internship. So if that's the case, then you're working only for a brand, as opposed to working in an agency where you're working for multiple clients. Advertising internships also is very broad, right? In advertising, you can have things in like account management, which is what I did. So account management is basically liaising between the clients, so the brand, and the creative team. It's a really cool job. You know, you're the one who's pushing together all the campaigns and project managing that. So you could be doing account management. You could also be doing strategy, for example, which is a big thing now in advertising. So really more about market research, understanding how you're going to be positioning the campaigns. Now there's a lot of stuff in content creation as well. Like if you can do graphic design, if you're a good storyteller and you write content really well and you can video edit, you can become a content creator, because all the brands now are communicating on social media, right? Everybody's communicating on Instagram, on TikTok. That's where it's at. So that's a really great skill to gain if you guys are thinking through about different types of path. And obviously that could be a different workshop that we can do together eventually. But content creation is a very good path. Strategy is a very good path. UI UX design, also a very good path. Accounts management, great path, because those are the stuff that are always going to be there, that are in demand right now, and people are looking for those types of interns. So I don't know if that answers your question. I can address that in further detail, but honestly, feel free to contact us. Like we can talk about that, and we can give you like tangible like company examples. If you want to do it in Sydney, maybe you want to go to Melbourne this summer, maybe you want to do it like in 2022 abroad, in New York, for example, or in Berlin. So talk to us, let us know what you're trying to do, and we can tell you if you're eligible, first of all, and what your possibilities are.
Great, thank you so much. We're gonna start wrapping up now. So I would like to say a huge thank you, Laura, for coming along again, return guests. It's always a pleasure. As well as to all of our attendees, whether you're watching it now or because we are recording this, watching later. And I'll be sure to put up all the links that we've been sending in the chat, all the stuff we've been talking about, and plenty of really good stuff coming up on the horizon. Our APRS case competition, we've got the finals coming up, I believe, next week on, might be Thursday, might have got that wrong, but the finals are coming up. And a few more events that will be coming out for the year, as well as director recruitment as we close out. So Laura, would you like to give any final thoughts?
No, thank you guys. I mean, so much for attending. Don't get overwhelmed by anything that I said. Like, none of it needs to happen today. But if anything, if you can remember one thing about this workshop is just shift your mindset. Okay, shift your mindset of the way you're going to be approaching those jobs, those connections, and really start slowly, but now building it up, and things will unlock. I promise. I swear that if you do that and if you implement those advice, you will go quicker, much quicker than if you didn't. So that's all you need to kind of gather for tonight. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that it was useful.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let's stop sharing.
You were a great nephew, professor, everything.